Good morning, everybody. Hey, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's glad to see everybody fellowshipping and getting kind of like the first day of school. I will call the Committee on Energy and Commerce will come to order, and I'll recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning and welcome, everyone, to the first meeting of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce of the 119th Congress. The Committee on Energy and Commerce is the oldest standing legislative committee in the U.S. House of Representatives and is vested with the broadest jurisdiction of any congressional authorizing committee. With this expansive authority and distinguished history comes a significant responsibility. What happens in the People's House impacts Americans in their homes, and the American people are counting on us to tackle the most pressing issues, delivering results that improve their lives. Together, this committee will hit the ground running, playing a pivotal role in restoring the American dream by unleashing American energy, lowering the cost of health care, and ensuring that America remains the world leader in technological innovation. As we look ahead to the new Congress, maintaining affordable and reliable energy will be key to America's success, supporting both our economic and national security. Unfortunately, over the past 4 years, the Biden-Harris administration has saddled the American people with higher energy prices, but I'm excited about changes we can make with the new administration. We must also take steps to protect our critical energy infrastructure. It's time to fortify our national security by strengthening the reliability of our electric grid. The past 4 years saw the implementation of a rulemaking agenda that has put American energy production in jeopardy while raising prices for American families. Energy and Commerce Republicans will offer solutions to address these issues and strengthen our grid by preserving existing baseload power, including natural gas, nuclear, coal, and hydropower. American leadership must extend into the development and deployment of emerging technologies by removing burdensome regulations and encouraging innovation. We will make sure that our economy can outcompete the Chinese Communist Party. Our leadership in artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, and wireless technologies will create jobs and unlock a generation of growth and prosperity. And we need to make sure that every American has access to that success. Unfortunately, the Biden-Harris administration failed on its own promise to connect all Americans by bogging down the Broadband Equity and Access Deployment Program with unnecessary red tape that prevented even a single American from being connected despite $42 billion price tag. We're prepared to put the country on a new course where we close the digital divide and make sure everyone can enjoy the exciting technological developments that have only just begun. With broad health jurisdiction, this committee will continue focusing on driving down the cost of care, providing price transparency to consumers and businesses, supporting innovation, and most importantly, working to help restore trust in public health. We'll closely examine the Medicare and Medicaid programs to ensure they are working efficiently and better serving the individuals they were originally designed to assist. Additionally, we'll work to address the opioid epidemic, advancing policies to help individuals avoid fentanyl poisoning, while also giving hope to families and individuals struggling with substance use disorder. While the task before us is significant, the committee will champion a bold vision to deliver the change demanded by the American people. From healthcare and energy to telecommunications and consumer protection policy, I look forward to working together to ensure we successfully advance solutions to our nation's greatest challenges. It's an honor to serve as chairman of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, and I am confident that our collective efforts, we will lead the way to restoring the American dream. I will now take the privilege of introducing our new members. I want to welcome all of our new members to the committee. I know that my good friend from New Jersey is going to introduce the new members from his side, but I will now begin by introducing our new members. First, we have Congressman Cliff Bentz. He's from Oregon's 2nd District. Congressman Bentz is a third-generation Oregonian, raised on his family's cattle ranches in Harney County. And an attorney, he specializes in rancher reorganizations and water law and was a member of the Oregon State Senate. Welcome, Cliff. Mr. Bentz, I guess I should say. Next is Congresswoman Erin Houchin from Indiana's 9th District. Congresswoman Houchin was a Hoosier small business owner operating a public relations company focused on helping law enforcement communicate the good work they do. In addition to her private sector work, she served as a member of the Indiana State Senate for nearly a decade and has held several leadership positions in her community. Welcome, Congresswoman. Congressman Russell Fly from South Carolina's 7th District. Congressman Fry is a true example of the American dream. He put himself through undergraduate education at the University of South Carolina and law school at Charleston School of Law. Congressman Fry served South Carolina as a member of the state's House of Representatives. As an Eagle Scout, Congressman Fry shares the sentiment that you should leave your campsite better than you found it. Welcome to the committee. Congresswoman Laura Lee joins us from Florida, 15th District. Congresswoman Lee is a wife, mother, and daughter of a 2-star general in the United States Air Force. Laura grew up in a military family, born at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Congresswoman Lee has been a lifelong public servant, including being the 30th Secretary of State of the great state of Florida and a judge for the 13th Judicial Circuit Court of Florida. Welcome to the committee. Next is Congressman Nick Langworthy from New York's 23rd District. Congressman Langworthy has a deep background rooted in public service and represents the communities in New York where he was raised and worked his entire life. His deep-seated belief in the values of hard work is driven by his upbringing working in his family's restaurant business. Welcome to the committee. Congressman Tom Kane Jr. joins us from New Jersey's 7th District. From a young age, Congressman Kane has understood and recognized the importance of civic engagement. As a former staffer and member of the New Jersey General Assembly, Tom has been dedicated to serving his community. Welcome, Tom, to the committee. Nick. I've left out a part. In addition to his professional duties in Washington, D.C., he was the vice president of a fire department where he volunteered as a firefighter and an emergency medical technician. Welcome to the committee. And next is Congressman Mike Ruley from Ohio's 6th District. Over 100 years ago, Congressman Ruley's grandfather and great-uncle founded Ruley Brothers Market, which he and his brother ran together before he came to Congress. He is extremely passionate about our nation's future, previously serving as a member of the Ohio Senate, representing the 33rd District. Welcome to the committee. Congressman Gabe Evans is from Colorado's 8th District. Congressman Evans served his country in the U.S. Army in Colorado National Guard as a Black Hawk helicopter and company pilot and company commander, completing a combat deployment to the Middle East. Thank you for your service, and welcome to the committee. Congressman Craig Goldman is from the 12th District of Texas. Congressman Goldman is a 5th-generation Texan and 4th-generation Fort Worth native. Before entering public office, Craig spent nearly a decade working alongside his father at their family-run business in Fort Worth and served in the Texas State House, representing the 97th District. Welcome to the committee. And welcome Congresswoman Julie Fedorchak from North Dakota. Congresswoman Fedorchak is a 4th-generation North Dakotan and brings a wealth of experience, previously serving on the North Dakota Public Service Commission. So welcome to the committee. I now recognize the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Guthrie. I want to begin by congratulating you on becoming chair of the full committee. And over the last couple of Congresses, it's been a pleasure working with you on some of the most important bipartisan health care bills that we've advanced out of the committee and seen passed into law. This committee, as you mentioned, has a strong and proud tradition of bipartisan collaboration. I'm hopeful that bipartisan cooperation will continue this Congress, and I look forward to working with you to advance policies that will make a real difference in the lives of the American people. And I did want to particularly mention Beijing, China. I do agree with you completely. As you know, a previous chair, Kathy Rogers, was very constantly emphasizing to us the threats that we face, not only from a national security point of view, but from an economic point of view from Beijing. And I just want you to share that, to say that that's one of the things I think that we have to be mindful of, and I appreciate your mentioning it. I have to say, though, I'm very concerned about what we're hearing from President Trump. Democrats will fight any efforts to gut health care, environmental and consumer protections that we fought so hard for to enact over the years. And we're going to work to protect Americans' health care from attempts to repeal Medicare price negotiation or sabotage the Affordable Care Act or cut Medicaid funding for low-income, elderly, and disabled Americans. And I am concerned, from what I hear, that Republicans are crafting plans to take to do what I consider take health care away from low and middle income Americans so they can provide huge tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. So next year, thanks to Democrats finally empowering Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drug prices, seniors are expected to save $1.5 billion in out-of-pocket costs on the first 10 drugs that were negotiated. And that's a lot of money, and Medicare is set to negotiate another 15 drugs this year. It was also another year of record enrollment in the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, with nearly 24 million Americans signing up so far for 2025. And these records are thanks to Democrats' efforts to make the ACA more affordable, saving Americans an average of $800 annually on their premiums. And nearly 80 million Americans are now enrolled in Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, thanks to Democrats easing unnecessary burdens that make it impossible for people to enroll in and maintain their coverage. So again, we should be working together to build upon these successes, not repealing or weakening them. And we will also, as Democrats, oppose any efforts to repeal the climate provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act that are strengthening our economy, lowering energy costs, and combating the worsening climate crisis that is costing lives and livelihoods. We're seeing the results of the climate crisis play out right now in California with the devastating wildfires in Los Angeles. It's just another reminder that we have to continue to aggressively combat the climate crisis. Our investments in clean energy are growing our economy for the future. So far, more than 400,000 good-paying jobs have been created, and the law is expected to create 9 million jobs over the next decade. Many of those are in Republican districts. So if Republicans move forward with any kind of agenda that puts polluters over people, that will undermine our clean energy efforts, and that will also surrender our clean energy leadership to our adversaries. So again, I think that we can focus on fighting on behalf of the American people on a bipartisan basis. We should be focused on lowering everyday costs for American families, growing our economy, protecting consumers, and leading the clean energy transition. So let me now, if I can, welcome and introduce the 7 new Democratic members of the committee. They are a diverse group in terms of their talent and very capable new members. I'm not saying as much about them as you did. Maybe that's my fault that I should have more information, but I think you know most of them. So first is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. I think most of you know she's been a strong advocate for addressing the climate crisis and protecting the environment, and also fighting to create a more just economy. Then we have Representative Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. He's in his 3rd term. He's prioritized promoting clean energy, lowering healthcare costs, and ending gun violence. And I do know a little bit about his family because I have to say, I often talk about how in my district we have so many Republican presidents, particularly from Ohio, as Bob Ladin knows. But one of my predecessors in Congress was a guy by the name of James Auchincloss, not Jake, but James Auchincloss. And I asked Jake one time whether they were related, and in fact they are. So, and he was a Republican too, James Auchincloss, just so you know. Right. Then we have Representative Troy Carter of Louisiana, who's focused on environmental justice, mental health, and health equity during his 4 years in the House. And of course, one of the reasons I like him is because he's from Cajun country. So now we have a Cajun country guy here. And then we have from my own state, very proud to have Representative Rob Menendez, he used to be, before he was in Congress, he was on the Port Authority, and he did a lot in our state to modernize our crumbling infrastructure and also increase affordability for American families. So we have 2 New Jerseyans, one on your side and one on our side. And then we have Representative Kevin Mullen of Northern California, who's fought to strengthen climate resilience and to build an economy that works for everyone. And we have Representative Greg Landsman of Ohio, who's been a strong advocate for children and families over his entire career in Congress, the last 2 years in particular, but even before. And last but not least is Representative Jennifer McClellan of Virginia. She's in her 2nd term. She's focused on a lot of issues, but I'm very proud of her record in preserving and being an advocate for reproductive health care. So congratulations to all the new members on both sides of the aisle. Welcome, everyone. And obviously, after today, we get to work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do welcome everyone. I know you mentioned our new member, Mr. Carter. I think all of us watched you as you were dealing with what was going on in your great city on New Year's Day. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. And I know Ms. Buttigieg, I know we've got a lot of Californians on the committee, but I know you're LA and surrounding LA. I think Obernolte's LA, our northern part of it, because district comes in. And our thoughts and prayers are with you and all Californians, and hopefully the winds will die down and we can get a handle on this. So thank you for, you're in our thoughts and prayers. So the chairman reminds members that pursuant to the committee rules, all members' opening statements will be made part of the record. Are there any further opening statements?
Mr. Chairman.
You gentleladies recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to all of the new members. But I wanted to say to you, Mr. Chairman, I think we got to know each other, it was probably 15 years ago on a trip to Afghanistan, and since that time you have demonstrated that you're a thoughtful and effective member, and I'm really looking forward to your leadership of this outstanding committee, the committee that produces most legislation that passes through the U.S. House. I'm looking forward to working with Bob Latta on the Energy Committee as well, but at the end of the year, there were so many bipartisan initiatives coming out of Energy and Commerce that did not make it across the finish line, whether we're talking about community health centers, preventing maternal deaths, Mission Zero, Pediatric Cancer, Hidden Fees Act, the Ticket Act, and then we had a lot of bipartisan work to protect kids online, their privacy and their safety, and the Shine for Autumn Act. So there was a lot of work at the end of the year that just didn't get done, and I'm curious about your view of getting to work early to get back to some of those bipartisan initiatives. I'm looking at Mr. Carter, everything that we did to combat the gouging of pharmacy benefit managers as well. So just, I'm curious, before we go into the rules, what your view is on getting back to that bipartisan work and trying to get it enacted.
Well, thank you for asking that. I was disappointed that those didn't get past the finish line at the end. It was a lot of hard work by members on this committee and bipartisan. I know that we will have our moments, but most of you will know we work I was telling our new members, almost every bill we pass, most of the bills we pass has a sponsor from both sides of the aisle, and everything in that package was one of those. They were important. Trying to find the right avenue for them. They are still alive. It's a priority of this side of this committee. I know it's a priority because they're all bipartisan. They wouldn't have been in that bill. We're just trying to find the right avenue to be able to move those policies forward, and they're a priority. So thanks for bringing that up. Dr. Joyce, I was going to recognize you in a little while later, but go ahead, Dr. Joyce.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie. As we begin this new Congress, the Energy and Commerce Committee stands ready to meet the challenges that are facing our nation. As the Vice Chairman of this committee, I look forward to working with all 17 of our new members to achieve meaningful victories that our constituents are expecting us to do. Returning our nation to energy dominance, closing the digital divide, and addressing the healthcare issues that matter most to the American people will be critical in the upcoming days. It is time to lower the cost of medications. It is time to utilize the energy resources that are underneath the feet to secure our electric grid. And it's time to connect more Americans to fast and reliable internet. These will be issues that we will all face together. As the only member of this esteemed committee from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I am excited about the chance to address these issues. And again, I extend welcome to all 17 of the new members. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you. I was actually going to announce as we were moving forward, but Dr. Joyce is the vice chair of the full committee and will be engaged in everything we're doing. So we really appreciate you taking that responsibility and look forward to working with you in the whole committee. So,
thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Pallone.
Thank you. And Ranking Member Pallone is not the vice chair of the...
Yeah, I was going to do it later too, but I want to mention that Lizzie Fletcher is our vice ranking member, and we're very proud of that. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Thank you. Any other opening statements? Seeing none, the chairman now calls up the resolution to adopt the committee rules for the 119th Congress and asks the clerk to report.
Resolution offered by Chairman Guthrie.
Without objection, the first reading of the resolution is dispensed with, and resolution will be open for amendment at any point. The chairman recognizes himself for 5 minutes on the resolution. These committee rules are identical to the rules adopted from the 118th Congress. There were two changes, right? Okay, these are identical to the Okay, that's right, we changed the jurisdiction. Are identical to the rules adopted 118th Congress. That said, I would like to quickly go through a few policies the committee will follow this Congress. We'll have paperless hearings. The committee will continue its policy of paperless hearings by electronically distributing testimony before all hearings. Subcommittee hearing protocol. Next, a policy on participation in subcommittee hearings of which you are not a member. By right, all members of the House are entitled to non-participatory attendance at hearings, even if they are not on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So they can sit on the dais, but they cannot make a statement or question witnesses. For members of the Energy and Commerce Committee, however, you may question witnesses at a hearing even if you are not on the relevant subcommittee. Members should let this committee know if they plan to participate in any off-subcommittee hearing because we will need to make a unanimous consent request, which traditionally has been given. In addition, you will not be recognized at the hearing until all of the subcommittee members have been recognized. That said, still try to attend as much of the subcommittee hearing as possible so you have a better sense of what questions have been asked and topics covered. Showing up to the hearing on time. On a related note, I encourage members to be prompt and show up on time for hearings. This is a courtesy to both our witnesses and your fellow members. So markup protocols. The committee will continue its long-standing tradition of giving bipartisan amendments priority recognition. That means if the amendment is sponsored by members on both sides of the aisle, those amendments will have priority when we have markups. For the last several years, priority recognition has been given to amendments submitted at least 2 hours before the start of a markup. Members are encouraged to submit their amendments as soon as possible, but I believe 2 hours prior to the start of a markup would be sufficient for all members to review the amendments. The majority leader follows protocols in scheduling legislation for the floor, and while these protocols are not binding in committee, I would encourage you to observe the protocols in drafting legislation. Following those protocols will help our bills be considered and passed on the floor. I intend to continue the committee's tradition to not postpone or roll votes. I will only postpone or roll votes if a unique situation arises. I'll work with the minority in determining a time to resume proceedings. That said, I want to make sure that we know as based on what happens, we may have roll votes more in the future than in the past. We want to make our markups efficient. I think I heard that from my members. You probably heard from your members, making markups more efficient. And if we have to postpone or roll votes, we will be able to do that. So other protocols. With regard to the chairman's authority to call and convene meetings and markups, I will try the maximum practical extent to avoid scheduling committee proceedings on days and at times that would conflict with Democratic caucus meetings or Republican conference meetings and other leadership functions, to avoid scheduling, I should say, other committee events. I now recognize Mr. Pallone for a colloquy on the subpoena authority.
I had two questions. I'll start with the subpoena authority, since that's what you mentioned. But I also wanted to talk a bit about remote witness and the House rule. But with regard to the subpoena authority, Mr. Chairman, the committee rules authorize the chair to issue subpoenas after and to the extent practical consultation 72 hours in advance of issuance between the Democratic leader of the committee and the chair. And written notice must be provided to committee members no later than 1 week from the date of issuance. The subpoena power obviously is one of the Congress's most important tools for collecting information and needs to legislate effectively. So experience shows that the mere threat of subpoena is often sufficient to get Congress the information that it needs. However, as with all government authorities, the subpoena power should be used thoughtfully to avoid abuse. The current committee rule was written in the 114th Congress. Then Chairman Upton used his authority 5 times during that Congress. And then Mr. Walden, Chair Walden, used the authority just once during the 115th Congress. And in each case, the subpoena was either requested by the witness, a so-called friendly subpoena, or authorized only after extensive attempts to gather the information from the witness and being denied said information. Now, I did not use the subpoena authority at all during the 116th and 117th Congress when I was the chair, and Chair Rogers used the authority just once during the 118th Congress. So I'm hopeful that reasonable and responsible exercise of this authority continues. So my question, Mr. Chairman, will you commit to taking reasonable steps before resorting to the subpoena authority, such as building a committee record on the matter by requesting voluntary briefings or interviews, information requests, negotiating with objects of the subpoena so that it can be tailored to the committee's specific needs.
I think that is a reasonable, what you just read and spoke about, and I intend to follow the rules set forth in our committee rules with respect to subpoenas, but I absolutely think that's reasonable.
Well, thank you. Now, let me ask also, will the chairman commit to taking reasonable steps, including a face-to-face conversation or phone call or email to consult with me at least 72 hours before issuing the subpoena?
Yes.
And to provide the required notice to members after issuing a subpoena?
Yes, I will.
Okay. I think these exchanges are good to get on the record, and I appreciate your the colloquy, and I think it's important for the function of the committee when things do get heated that we have these understandings going in, for both sides. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask about remote or comment on the remote witness. Now, the remote witness rule is actually a House rule that governs the appearance of remote witnesses at committee hearings for the 119th Congress. But even before the COVID-19 pandemic, on a bipartisan basis, the Energy and Commerce Committee allowed witnesses to testify remotely when warranted. Allowing witnesses to participate in hearings remotely provides the ability to hear from people from all across the country in all walks of life. It's been extremely valuable in broadening the voices and opinions that we all hear from during our hearings. So Congress doesn't compensate witnesses for taking time off from work and leaving their families to fly across the country on short notice to participate in our hearings. So before the last Congress, the decision about whether to allow specific remote witnesses, like other decisions related to committee witnesses, was a decision made by the committee and not by the House majority leadership. But on an almost straight party line vote, the Republicans in the House adopted rules that only allow non-governmental witnesses to appear remotely at committee or subcommittee proceedings at the discretion of the committee's chair in accordance with the regulations for Section 3I of HRes 5. The regulations prohibit remote participation by witnesses unless the committee chair submits a letter to the majority leader detailing the necessity for the witness to participate remotely, a description of why the witness could not participate in person, and why such testimony was necessary for purposes of fulfilling Congress's Article I responsibility. So it's a pretty strict and limited situation. And then the majority leader would then have to provide written approval of such remote participation. Now, obviously, I don't like this because I think it defies the way this committee works, the House rules, that is. So for any hearing, the Republicans pick their witnesses and the Democrats pick ours, and Republicans cannot object to someone we pick and vice versa. But my concern, Mr. Chairman, is that the majority leader would be able to reject our witnesses if they could not appear in person. And as a committee, I don't think we should be ceding that control to any leadership outside of this committee. I'm concerned that this requirement can also be abused to allow committees to hear from remote witnesses that speak to Republican goals, but not those who speak to ours. So I am concerned that these House rules provide unnecessary restrictions on remote witnesses that will result in Congress only hearing more from the wealthy and the well-connected who can afford to come here, and that's a shame. I don't want to hear from DC lobbyists. I want to hear from, hardworking people at home when we have our hearings. But I understand that we have to comply with the House rules, so I'm interested in ensuring that the minority retain our authority to select minority witnesses to the greatest extent possible in compliance with the rules. As the minority, we're best positioned to determine who are witnesses and who, for given hearings that can fulfill our Article I responsibility, and at times, well-qualified witnesses who can provide the committee with valuable information and different perspectives may be unable to appear in person because of financial hardships or family responsibilities, or even health concerns. So, Mr. Chairman, let me just ask this question after all that. There may be instances when non-governmental witnesses selected by the minority are only available to participate remotely due to extreme hardship or other exceptional circumstances. So can I ask for your assurance that you will work with me to get approval for minority-selected remote witnesses under the House rule?
I commit to working with you to help get approval through the Majority Leader's office for remote witnesses for hearings.
I appreciate that. And I know I went on here for a while about this, but I really do not agree with the House rule. But thank you for your response. I appreciate it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will say that the Democrats are prepared to support the rules package, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing no further discussion, the question now occurs on approving the resolution to adopt the committee rules for 119th Congress. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All the opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the resolution is approved. The chair calls up the resolution establishing the subcommittees of the Energy and Commerce Committee for the 119th Congress and asks the clerk to report.
Resolution offered by Chairman Guthrie.
Without objection, the first reading of the resolution is dispensed with, and the resolution will be open for amendment at any point. The chairman now recognizes himself for 5 minutes on the resolution. I look forward to our 6 subcommittees getting to work this Congress. The jurisdiction for each subcommittee are in front of you. The only changes made to the subcommittees were to simplify a couple of subcommittee names and to make a couple of clarifying edits to the jurisdiction of the Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. So we added streaming, which when we wrote the rules, it's kind of relatively new, that we have to update as the time updates, right? And to say that we update when the time updates, we also added the Telecommunications Act of 1934. So that was never listed in that group. So we're going from 1934 to streaming. So the jurisdictions of all the subcommittees remain the same with those 2 additions. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Seeing none, the question now occurs on approving the resolution to adopt the committee subcommittees for the 119th Congress. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All the opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the resolution is approved. I recognize myself to announce the Republican subcommittee rosters for the 119th Congress. Members will find the Republican subcommittee rosters and Democratic rosters at their seats. I know you're all excited to get work on your respective subcommittees, and I really appreciate Megan Jackson and Sophie Katamati in my office, working with your office, has worked with Tiffany and your office, has worked really hard to get the ratios and to get members on both sides of the aisle on the subcommittees. Y'all do it a little different than we do, but but make sure we have the slots for the most part to get members of this committee on the subcommittee of their highest interest, because we know we're going to have a lot of work and they're going to do a lot of work, and we appreciate working with you in your office to make sure we had the ratios necessary to accommodate our member interests. So thanks to your side, Mr. Pallone, for that, and thanks for our staff directors for working on that. I'd also like to introduce, as we said, Vice Chairman of the full committee is going to be Dr. Joyce of Pennsylvania. And I'll read it. I didn't read his biography earlier. He's a fellow American Academy of Dermatology. A fellow. He's not. I'm not a fellow, so a fellow of mine. He is a fellow in the American Academy of Dermatology. John operated a private dermatology practice along with his wife, Dr. Alice Joyce, for over 25 years in his hometown of Altoona before coming to Congress in 2019. As a practicing physician, small business owner, John brings unique perspective to the committee's work. And since coming to Congress, he has prioritized efforts to increase access to affordable health care, energy, and broadband for the Appalachian South Central Pennsylvania communities he represents. And thank you, Dr. Joyce. So you announced you want to say something on Ms. Fletcher?
Well, I didn't know I was going to talk about Ms. Fletcher any more than I already have, but all of you know her. And the one thing I will say is she's very nice, but she can be tough when she has to be. So we'll see as time goes on. But thank you, Lizzie, absolutely, for doing this. You know, Mr. Chairman, I guess I could mention that we have a rule in the amongst the Democrats that the vice chair has to be someone who's served less than 5 terms in Congress, and it's actually an elected position. The other thing I could mention, if you don't mind, is the ranking members. Now, you know, again, on our Democratic caucus, and I don't know if it's true in the Republican conference, I can't really officially announce the ranking members because they actually have to go back to the Steering and Policy Committee and the caucus to be ratified. We choose them amongst ourselves and make a recommendation. But the ranking members that we have recommended for the Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade is Jan Schakowsky. For the Subcommittee on Communications and Technology is Doris Matsui. For the Subcommittee on Energy is Kathy Castor. For the Subcommittee on the Environment is Paul Tonko. And for the Subcommittee on Health is Diana DeGette. And for the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations is Yvette Clark. So thank you again. I yield back.
I think ours were at their seats, but I will go down the list you just had. So our subcommittee chair for Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade is Mr. Bilirakis. For Communications Technologies, Mr. Hudson. For Energy is Mr. Latta. For Environment is Mr. Griffith. For Health is Mr. Palmer. And for Health is Mr. Carter. And Oversight and Investigations is Mr. Palmer. Got that right? Yeah. So thanks, you said she's both tough and pleasant, I think you said. And I think that kind of summarizes our committee. There are going to be issues that we are going to not always agree on, and there are going to be more opportunities to agree than disagree. And I think that's been what my friend from Florida, Ms. Castor, brought up, that whole package of enormous importance to this country that was in the final bill that didn't quite get across the finish line. Is a great example of so many members of this committee working together. We want to continue that tradition. I know, as you said, we'll work together when we can, and we'll figure out how to move forward when we can't. But we really appreciate being part of this committee, and I think welcome all the members. I think we've done all of our official business without objection. The staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the resolutions considered by the committee today. So ordered. Without objection, the committee will stand adjourned.